how bloody good was that? This season has been so good. After the first couple episodes, I kept waiting for it to die off, for there to be a weak episode, for there to be a low budget episode. And maybe there was. I mean, I'm sure there were some parts that weren't as expensive as, say, like the first episode and the last one, especially that first one with the big crate dragon that you finally get to see. But it wasn't as obvious as that one bad episode from the first season. This season has been so good. I haven't been doing reviews for the last couple episodes. I decided to watch them all basically back to back. I watched the second to last one of those, mostly Bill Burr. It was like a Bill Burr podcast. He's such a anti-Star Wars, anti-sort of nerd geek type. Like if you compare him to Katie Sackhoff is so good at delivering that mouthful of sci-fi lore, which can really come off in unskilled people as dry or kind of like gobbledygook and really silly. And she does a really good job of that. I mean, she did a great job in Battlestar Galactica with that, and she always manages to give it like a weight and a meaning, and she's very believable. I liked what Burr did. I watch a lot of his comedy and listen to his podcast, so it can feel kind of strange hearing him so much because he is so different, but I think he does a great job of playing a sleazy ex-Imperial. He's got sleaze, but he's got wisdom, the heart of gold thing at the end. I thought he was pretty believable. The scene where they sat down at the table, the way they handled the tension in that was just freaking dynamite. It felt like I was watching Inglourious Bastards, and everything about it felt believable. The way that the Mandalorian character was really out of his depth because he was just like the audience. And there's a whole bunch of etiquette and things that you would have to know, but if you're not going to get caught. And the way Bill Burr came in there, and after refusing to go in to talk to him and then left, that meant the Mandalorian had to go in and finally, after 2 whole seasons, take off his helmet, show his face. And they didn't emotionally manipulate you like they could have. It was a very emotional scene. It felt great because it was the payoff, but they knew that they had built it up so much. Here it is. And while he's doing something else, there wasn't any crazy dramatic music. There wasn't slow motion. There was nothing. It was just him having to get something done. And that's what is so important about it, is that like this show always does with its writing. They give you a dangerous situation. The characters rise to meet it. They raise the stakes. The characters rise to meet it in ways that are very meaningful. And just like how Bill Burr didn't want to go in and risk seeing that officer when he saw what the Mandalorian was willing to do, taking off his helmet, he came in and saved him and sat down and looked that guy right in the eye and realized he would get something out of it too in the end, shooting him, and then they have to make the big daring escape. And it was just so well done. There was another part during the action scene when Burr's driving and the Mandalorian is on top, and he's fighting off a lot of the pirates, but eventually he gets overwhelmed. He's still just one guy, which is what makes the show so interesting, is that they still give you this feeling like, yeah, he's one guy. He can get overwhelmed. And he's sort of standing there staggered like Rocky Balboa, still ready to throw him, but you know he's going to lose. And then, bam, TIE fighters come down. And it's just such a wonderful, heroic moment. Like they know how to do the formula so well that it doesn't feel stale. It still feels really invigorating all the time. It's just, I was constantly surprised at the emotions that it would stir out of me, especially because this last trilogy of Star Wars was just such a mess of some great moments and a lot of crap that it's just so great to see it done well. So let's move on to this last episode. I thought that the first pilot sounded a bit weird, but then it made sense. The Imperial pilot with the two Imperials and the scientist engineer guy, and when they get boarded. And then I thought he kind of has one of those voices like, is this guy, is he a writer on the show? Is he a producer? Is that like Dave Filoni or something? And is he doing a cameo? Just because he didn't kind of talk like a normal actor, but it made perfect sense when he shoots his co-pilot and ends up having the confrontation with the MMA girl, telling her about blowing up Alderaan. And I love how that was a nice little joke. I was on the Death Star. She says, which one? And to hear it from his point of view of, we were trying to eradicate terrorism, and you don't know how many millions of people were lost on each Death Star that blew up while the galaxy celebrated. Like, that's what you got to do. The villains need to have a point of view, and that's what they generally do. Even that officer in the Bill Burr episode, he was a very walking, talking embodiment of evil, of like really brought up the imagery of, say, like a southern plantation owner. But he was making this point, and all the Imperials are making this point in the next episode after that, the finale, that it's all about trying to restore order, and that people think they want peace, but it's about order. And that's just a common political, philosophical thing, that some people want anarchy, some people want total liberation, and some people want things to be controlled and regulated, and they're just one example of that. They're not just out there being like, haha, we're evil, we want to kill everybody. It's more like, no, we believe that when you die, it's for the greater good. It's like people that die that are in the service and in the army, they feel like they died for their country, and other people might say, why are you even doing that? But let's not get into real politics. Space politics are a lot more fun. I like how they actually had to have a plan to get onto the capital ship, where Boba is going to be tailing them through hyperspace, and they're on the hijacked shuttle. They tell him, you got to make it believable, make sure you're really shooting at us. And they're going to go straight for that capital ship. The capital ship launches TIE fighters, which is kind of a problem because they're trying to use that one launching bay, which they establish, and they have multiple TIE fighters coming out of it, one after another. And when the shuttle is trying to land, the Imperial officers are saying, you can't land right now, we need this space for TIE fighters, and they just push the issue. And it makes it feel believable, it makes it feel lived in, it makes it feel like there's a logic behind why there's a danger, and this party wants one thing, and the heroes want another. And it's just like real simple stuff that I'm just so used to not seeing displayed in Star Wars and video games and different media, where like you just have to think about it, you have to be logical, and you need time to work these things out in a way that makes sense. There was some fun, clever action as they were mowing down the regular troops. It still felt pretty dangerous. I liked when they went across that bridge, they took out a whole bunch in front of them, and then a bunch of stormtroopers from the back got the drop on the Asian sniper, who I think played Chun-Li in the Street Fighter movie. And they recognize that they're overwhelmed by this big force of stormtroopers. They don't just shoot it out or stupidly try to just do something that doesn't make any sense. Because I find that with so many action movies where you just think, this is not interesting, because anytime someone seems like they have the drop on them, the hero or whoever is able to just kind of shoot them because they can. And you think, well, why didn't you do that before, and all this stuff. But this is great because the two Mandalorians that earlier dropped off down, then when Chun-Li and the MMA girl get surprised, they rise up, shoot them from the sides. It just like makes perfect sense. The only thing that might not is that there's a scene in Ronin.
Two shooters. Car comes through here. Shooters across from each other, kill each other dead. Oh my, where'd you learn that?
So, but there's enough stormtrooper bodies, I guess, to soak up all the damage, and they've got that blaster-proof armor. Now we see the Dark Troopers starting to get ready. The Dark Troopers, I love the metallic look to them. I love how big they are. I get that they're trying to go for a Darth Vader type thing. Their eyes are a little cartoony to me, but I can live with it. And I still get the sense that they're really powerful, and I like that they barely use them. They're just so good at setting up the potential that they could be. I like how they talked about them being this third evolution, where they found that the weak link was there being a human inside, and now they're totally robotic. And that's a way to make robots seem even more dangerous and scarier than a human, as opposed to the clone troopers or the robots in the prequel movies, which just felt like endless cannon fodder that was completely meaningless. I like how they're exiting the door, all the Dark Troopers, and Mando gets over there and just barely closes the door, and then one is so strong it manages to get through, but the door still closes because the door is that strong, which makes the robot team even stronger. And we see that the Mandalorian has his hands full, as Gideon says, with just this one. He almost gets taken down. I love that the thing's just like bashing his head into the wall, and like his helmet begins to start pushing into the back of the wall to show that the wall itself is weaker than both his helmet and this robot. There were a few times where you see the Dark Trooper maybe lightly grab his leg and throw him in kind of a dramatic way, instead of just like, wouldn't you just pick his leg up and just break it? Like, just grab his head and twist. Like, what are you punching for? Just grab his head and twist it off. But there are some concessions you need to make to film an action TV series. And I still got the point of what the scene was conveying and still found it pretty entertaining. He eventually deals with him. And then as he meets up with Moff Gideon, they actually have a bit of a negotiation, which I was ready to believe, like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Maybe he will just give him Gru and whoever wants this Darksaber, or you can have the Darksaber and keep your ship, and we'll back off before any more reinforcements come. And I knew that there was probably going to be a season 3. I hadn't heard anybody talking about it being the end of the season, although it looks like this is the end of that story arc for The Mandalorian, which I'm really happy for. I love this 1 series, 2 series stuff. It's fantastic. It's more like an extended movie than just a TV series that is like dragged on for 4, 5, 6 seasons as they have all these like filler episodes. So I love that they ended it quickly. Not quickly, satisfyingly. This is a BBC style of doing it. Get in, say what you're going to say, and get out. But of course, Gideon turns on him. They have a pretty interesting battle. They've established already that this Darksaber, which looked a little cheesy the first time we saw it, it was growing on me. It kind of reminds me of the weird effects they used in the Dune movie, the David Lynch Dune movie from the 80s. Okay, at least they're trying to do something different. And sometimes it's going to look a little cheesy, and not everything is going to be the lightning in a bottle that the original Star Wars was with those lightsabers. It got the point across. I like that only his armor could block it, so he had to use his like arm guards, couldn't block with his glove, couldn't miss, had to be accurate. And because he was concentrating so much on blocking, he was put on the defensive often, and then he brought out his spear, and it was a great little fight scene. The whole story of, it totally made sense that whoever wins the weapon controls it and controls Mandalore, because Katie Sackhoff's character had explicitly said that on the ship before they got on here. Whatever happens, just make sure that I'm the one that he submits to. So, whatever. I guess that'll be something for the next season. But it did do a good job of kind of sowing a bit of tension in this tense moment of, we're on the bridge, here's Gru, all the Dark Troopers are coming. I love that, where they didn't really know what the Dark Troopers were at first. They just go, we're being boarded, and it's all of them. So even though they were easily, apparently, ejected out into space, they were back. And like Gideon says, if you have trouble with just one, imagine what this is going to be. And the way that they're all kind of boarded up and they close the blast doors, and those robots just pounding on the doors over and over and over again. It was a really nice dramatic effect. So much tension out of it. And then the one X-Wing appears. So this is my timeline of realizing what they were doing. I saw the one X-Wing and I thought, it's probably that the Asian guy who's from Kim's Convenience. It's probably him. And then there's going to be a bunch more behind him. No, that would just be like the Rise of Skywalker, where just everybody shows up and there's no thought or logic of how that would be possible. But here they all are. Woohoo, there's Lando yelling at a green screen. No, it's one X-Wing. And when Gru went over and put his hand out, I thought, oh shit, they're not going to do it. No. And then I thought, it's probably like Ahsoka Tano or something. I don't even know how to pronounce her name. Rosario Dawson. She's really, really popular with fans of like the Clone Wars and Rebels. I've only seen about a season of Rebels and I really liked it. And I thought it's probably going to be her. And then he gets out, or this Jedi gets out, and it was like the black robe, and then you see the green lightsaber, and I go, I can't even remember what color a lightsaber is. It could still just be a fake out. The leather glove on the right hand, and it was the way they did the music, where it was a real reverential music, even though it was a big action moment as he's just taking down all these Dark Troopers, again in like logical, fun, believable ways. I always find a weakness with when you watch a Jedi fight is it's always like block, hack, force push. And you think, why don't you just like push them all? And why don't you start with that? But I think they did this in a way where he was using sort of the claustrophobia of it to his advantage. And they do that really well with a lot of the fight scenes, a lot of the Mandalorian sequences where he seems like a predator hunting people down. And you just see him mowing these people down, and it was what they wanted. And this is where I started thinking, like, oh my god, they are going to do it. I still, until the reveal, I thought, it's going to be Ahsoka Tano again. Because for people who are fans of the Clone Wars and Rebels, this would be that kind of a reverential moment. They just love her, right? She even had a line in Rise of Skywalker, I think. And then he just kept going, and I'm thinking, now I'm letting myself think, okay, maybe 75-25. I think it's going to be him. And I'm actually like getting a tear. Because, number one, when he rides that elevator, it's so tense and all he's doing is riding a bloody elevator. I love that. And he confronts that hallway of the last Dark Troopers, and you think, well, this is even more dangerous, because before he had all the room, and he could use the angles of the ship, and he was kind of fighting a few at a time. This is going to be a whole room of them. And this is what they wanted to do in Rogue One, where Darth Vader appears at the end of the movie. They're like, here you go, Star Wars porn for you. But it felt weird, because you were supposed to be cheering for the heroes to get away, but you're kind of cheering for Vader to just mow them all down, but just enough so that they do get away. And that always felt kind of off. It was a fun moment, but it was silly and like inconsistent with the tone. This makes a lot more sense, because now you actually have somebody coming to save the day. And when I first started allowing myself to think, oh my God, this is going to be Luke, I thought, yeah, this is right after Jedi. They keep talking about the Death Stars. Thank God for setting it in this time period. And when he starts mowing them down, and then at the end, when he just crushes that one like a trash compactor on a Death Star, but just with his own power, and goes through. And I was thinking, how are they going to do this? How many years is this after? Is it going to be Mark Hamill? Is it going to be the Grand Moff Tarkin style, or like the Leia style, or what they did in Rise of Skywalker when he was the sequence where he's training Leia? And they go for a very digitized version of his younger face that, if he's not moving and there aren't too many people to compare him to, looked very passable. And the voice sounded pretty good too. So I was wondering, did they do this like The Irishman, where they have, it didn't look like Mark Hamill digitally de-aged. It looked more like they had a body double, and they maybe used scanned his face, and then, or like took scans. It looks like they took scans right out of Return of the Jedi. Just whatever they did for Rise of Skywalker, that's what it looked like. And I thought for the most part, it looked pretty good. Better than Tarkin. Better than Leia in Rogue One. And his voice sounded pretty good. It almost sounded like when he asked him, are you a Jedi? And I think he says, I am, or I am a Jedi. I felt like they actually took that line like right from Return of the Jedi. Like, I am a Jedi like my father before me, or something. But I think it worked really, really well. And it was just so nice. That was such a cathartic moment after the clumsiness and the hit or miss kind of failure of the sequel trilogy and Rogue One and Solo, and feeling like they had just flushed Star Wars down the toilet and just hoarded it out until it was ruined. Like you took a really beautiful girl or boy out of high school and then just put them on the streets selling their body for money, and then they come back and you're like, oh God, you've been doing too much meth. And also, when you heard Mark Hamill's reaction of looking through the script in The Force Awakens and thinking, oh, any second now I'm going to make my big return, and he comes in at the last scene and he doesn't even have a line. And then him being this sort of like cranky Yoda type in The Last Jedi, which was fine. I liked how his confrontation with Kylo Ren at the end was nice too, and getting to see Leia. And then the throwaway stuff of Rise of Skywalker, where they force him to, I don't know what you would call that. It was like, Rey's, I'm down and I'm gonna give it all away. Oh, okay, and you talk to me for 45 seconds, Luke, and okay, I'm back into it. Moving on, because they crammed so much into that movie. So this felt like he got his proper send off, and because he had such a beautiful arc in the original, and there's so much potential in the sequel, and this felt like it was just a nice hello. The only thing about it is that a nice hello and goodbye. And the only thing about it is that it does kind of overshadow the moment slightly of the Mandalorian and Gru, where he takes his helmet off, Gru touches him, and you realize probably nobody has touched his face since his parents died, I would imagine, because he got adopted by that cult. And that was cool. That was a cool way to address, because they had mentioned that when he first met Sasha Banks and Kitty Sackhoff, they said, oh, he's from some weird cult. Not all Mandalorians are like that. That's just the way you guys have believed, and planted that seed and then paid it off. that he was willing to take it off. Not just to do the mission, but again, for the little baby. So I thought that it was very triumphant, and it works. It kind of only works if you are a fan of the original trilogy, which you would assume that most people watching this are hardcore fans of Star Wars. But I also think that it's been a long time since that original trilogy, and if you grew up and maybe just watched the prequels and thought those weren't that great, or maybe you really liked them and you were stuck on those, I don't think you would really have that reverence. I mean, seeing the black leather glove and the lightsaber, and it's just like Darth Vader mowing down all those rebel guys in Rogue One. Yeah, although Darth Vader was a lot more established in Rogue One. At least he appeared a few times before he had his big action moment. So this is like all the establishing of Luke Skywalker was done in 1977 to 1982 or whatever, right? So I would hope that people would have already have that built-in love for him, because it was pretty fabulously done. I mean, I was aware that this is slightly pandering. When R2 came out, I thought, okay, just pour it all in. Maybe the ghost of Obi-Wan should show up too, and we'll make him Ewan McGregor. And Hayden Christensen, better put him in there. Oh, did you hear that they're going to bring Hayden Christensen back for this Obi-Wan stuff? I would love to see him redeemed. And that would match beautifully the redemption of Darth Vader. Overall, the season was even better than the first. So strong, episode through episode. They should teach this in classes of how to just set things up, and how to do action scenes, and how to find your own identity when you're taking something so established. How to pay homage to what came before you while finding new ways that are still inspired by the way that the original property found those new ways, and how to raise stakes. It was bloody wonderful. I'd like to think of these two seasons as another trilogy that we didn't get in the movies, and it's good that they weren't in the theaters, because they just would have thrown so much money at it, and it would have been rushed, and they would have brought in the guy who wrote a crappy DC movie, and they just would have shit all over it, and it would have sucked, and it would have been about Boba Fett, and it would have been awful. And this was great. Loved it.